Welcome back to another special edition of the BRSN Insider. Josh Pound, now joined by head volleyball coach Erin Cooper on a medium that we've all become way too familiar with for over the last 6 months or so on Zoom. But we felt like this was the best course to get these interviews done this year so that all parties involved would maybe feel a little bit more comfortable being in our own environments, not having to wear our masks, not having to worry about the perception of whether or not we're 6 feet apart doing an interview. So thanks for taking the time, Coach Cooper. I realize your team has kind of been I don't want to say guinea pigs because that's I think we're all guinea pigs right now, to be perfectly honest. Those of us working in higher education and trying to coach and be administrators in higher education. But, your team has already been adversely affected by having a game scheduled and then now postponed due to circumstances related to COVID, but kind of out of our control. So I guess the first thing I want to talk about with you just is how has the team been doing in knowing that there are so many unknowns and there's only so many things that they can control as you guys have tried to ramp up to the start of competing and getting back to a little bit of normalcy on the court?
Yeah, so I'm so proud of our girls. I think that we have toughness as one of our covenants, our core covenants, and they have completely showed that from day one since March, honestly, to how tough they are. This last month has been tough on them. Adversely, they are coming back stronger than ever, though. Every time I walk into the gym and give them bad news, they smile and say, "We got this." And so that's just that kind of attitude that the girls have taken, and I'm very proud of them for doing so.
One of the positive things, I guess you could say, out of all the schedule changes and the restrictions that were given to us from the NAI was that it gave you more time for a preseason. It wasn't a 10-day or 2-week period where it was, okay, we've got to do this and we have this much time before we start going. How has that approach gone for you and your girls?
Yeah, so I think that at the beginning I was trying to figure it out because the preseason was going to be so different with having classes, which we've never had classes right away in preseason. And so I thought things would be different that way. And we were trying to get a whole bunch of things in. And then I took a step back and realized I have like a long time for preseason. And so we've implemented some things that I normally don't do it until about right now. And we're now perfecting them. So.
And, it goes without saying, obviously, training and practices have looked different, not just because of the more time and maybe even the size of the squad, but because of all of the mitigation efforts that each one of our programs is putting forward in order to try to cut down on the potential of outbreaks within teams or outbreaks on our campus. So just talk about some of the things that you and your staff have done with that have worked and allowed you guys to get back to a little bit of a normalcy, but at the same time stayed cautious and able to keep it in mind that we're doing all of this while trying to battle a pandemic.
Yeah. So before our girls even enter the gym, we wash our hands. We stop in the training room and wash our hands and get our temperature taken so that we can enter into the gym. For me, our athletic trainer, Danielle Shuck, and myself both agree that we are wanting to keep the gym a safe place for our athletes. And so we're doing our best not to bring germs into the gym at all. And then we have also not used our locker room. That has been something that's been really hard. I feel like the girls really tend to bond in the locker room before and after practices. We've just had to change that up a little bit. So when the girls are able to come into the gym, we have name tags on the floor. They pretty much bring their duffel bag in, place their bag on the floor, and start getting ready for practice there. And we take up, with 28 of us, we take up the whole gym. We have one wall that's left for office space like yourself. But other than that, the girls have their 6 feet circle.
Well, in a perfect world, with only one senior, 9 juniors coming back off of your season last year, you would have had time to maybe iron out some of the kinks with spring practices and maybe some spring scrimmages. But obviously, COVID-19 took those opportunities away from us. So what have been your big takeaways as you've settled in and started taking a look at who's going to be on the court for you this fall?
Yeah. Well, we weren't quite sure. We have Grace Millard, who played middle for the JV program last year, who we're moving over to the right side. I have high expectations for her. Haley Dickerson, who also is a player that played JV her freshman year, played a game or a tournament on JV beginning of last year, and she decided that this wasn't the place for her, and she worked her tail off and really worked her tail off this summer, and has come and proven to be probably one of our most offensive players in the gym any given day this fall. So Haley Dickerson. And yeah, so those are our two. We have a couple kids, Caitlin Vanchura and Mary Pat Taylor are both jousting for the outside position.
And the article was recently published in the Globe, where you talked about how you're really going to lean heavily probably on defense to start off with as your offense gets going. Now, I understand what you're talking about there, but for those that might understand, when you've got offense and defensive players kind of mixing together on the floor at the same time, where it's not, a clean cut, like, well, it's defense on this end of the floor, or offense on that end of the floor. How does that work together where you can lean potentially on your defensive play to kind of get your offense going?
Yeah. So for us, we have defensive players. Our platforms are really good, meaning our platform here is really good. We're able to get the ball into an area where our setters can do their part of feeding our offensive players. However, we're continuing, and I think we will rally teams to death. I think that we'll keep the ball off the floor. I think we'll keep rallies long. Our job now is to find ways to be offensive and have players that can find the floor on the other side of the court. With the loss of Fleur and Elizabeth Nobert, we don't have anybody that has the ability to find those holes right away. We are still, with such a young squad, we are still working on some of those things every day in practice, of making the setter-hitter connection, as well as having our players finding the holes in the court.
So you still have about another week as we sit here and record this, knock on wood, before you're going to get on to the floor. Just things have not worked out in a way that has allowed us. But looking at your conference schedule and things like that, do you anticipate the same set of schools to kind of be towards the top? Obviously, we've added Park University, who's a perennial power, to be there as within the conference as well now. So that adds another strong program for you to compete against. But does the conference, you think it shapes up conference standings wise to be kind of where it's been in the past, or do you think there might be a couple of schools that may surprise people this year?
Well, I do think that there'll be schools that surprise people. I know that MNU's been off to a great start. Evangel always seems to sneak it up there. But with Grandview, Central Methodist, and Park all in our conference and all being powerhouses, it'll be interesting to who takes up 4th, 5th, and 6th.
All right, Coach, we appreciate you taking the time. Good luck. Stay safe. Stay healthy. We'll control what we can control. Sounds like you and the girls have done a great job of keeping that positive attitude as we continue to move towards a little bit of normalcy. As I told Coach Sosa, obviously your games are not timed like theirs are, but to get the kids on the court to feel a little bit like as if things are back to normal, that's about all we can hope for at this point. So thanks for taking the time. We appreciate it, and good luck this season.
Thank you, Josh.